Thank you, David. We have two speakers today who will tell us about their experiences at Camp Carnahan 2025. Camp Carnahan was first launched in 1997 by Governor Mel Carnahan to train Democrats for campaigns, organizing, and leadership roles. Russ Carnahan, his son, chair of Missouri's Democratic Party, revived this important training 2 years ago. Devon McTye is a second generation Colombian. She is a graduate of Excelsior Springs Job Corps in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. She is a former employee of the University of Missouri. She also worked as a deputy clerk and election official with the Boone County Clerk's Office. She now spends her time as a volunteer and an advocate on a variety of issues, with a main emphasis on mental health and disability rights. Bekki Brewer has worked at a local manufacturing company for 25 years, spending the last 15 in occupational safety and health. She holds a master's degree in this field and is currently the Health, Safety, and Environmental Manager for Watlow's U.S. region, overseeing 14 sites across the country. She has also taught online courses in environmental health and safety as an adjunct instructor before stepping away to focus on serving her community. Bekki serves on the Hallsville Board of Adjustments and volunteers with organizations such as the Boone County Health Department, the Center Project, Unchained Melodies, which is a dog rescue, Mid-Missouri Pride, and voter registration initiatives. She is a lifelong Hallsville resident where she graduated from high school and has lived most of her life. Bekki and her wife Shirley have 4 children. The youngest is a sophomore at Hallsville, the oldest a Marine stationed in South Carolina, and the others live and work in Columbia. The other 2 live and work in Columbia. She is also a proud grandmother of 3, including 2 first graders at Blue Ridge. Bekki is now taking her passion for service a step further as a candidate for Missouri's House of Representatives, District 44. Welcome, Devon and Bekki.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess, Kathy, if that's okay, if I can just sort of start talking through kind of the experience.
Exactly.
Okay. So I was actually initially recommended Camp Carnahan by David Mallory. So thanks again, David. He had mentioned that this was something that was beneficial training and how as a candidate or prospective candidate, how I would benefit from that. And so obviously looked into that and signed up. They accepted me as a participant as well as Devon. When I went, so there was 3 tracks and I was on the candidate track. And so they divided us up kind of into 3 groups, and we each focused, and Devon can talk a little bit about the track that she was on, but each of us were focused kind of on different areas. And so we got to work through, like, if we were to create a campaign commercial, what would that look like? Now, I'm not sure for District 44 if I'll have a commercial, but just highlighting the things that would be of interest to folks and how to kind of gain people's interest immediately if you were going to do some sort of commercial, be it radio or television. We talked a lot about campaign budgeting, and for me, I'm brand new to this, so I took, I don't know if I can show you, but I took 23 pages of notes there. It was a lot of notes in those 2 days, but campaign budgeting, we worked on my stump speech. So I do have that, and if there's time later, I can share that with you and just kind of get your opinion. I haven't actually been to an event yet where I've gotten to share that. Sure, there's probably still some tweaks needed, but So worked on putting that together. They had resources there that would kind of help make sure that we were focusing on the right things as we tried to communicate. So using simple language like I and we, and really trying to, again, like grab people in the first couple sentences and make sure that you mentioned that we want you to vote, like give them some actions, right? So we talked a lot about that. Things that were also kind of new to me were media. So the differences between earned media and paid media. So earned media, and I'm actually kind of working with Monica from the Boone County Democrats on this, but earned media is like letter to the editors or being out there, like you are reaching out. You're not paying for this, but the newspapers are potentially posting. Like I've written a letter to the editor for the Fireside Guard or Ashland, the Boone County Journal, or again, going to events and having interviews or pictures taken and getting that out. It's free, right? And then of course paid media. So if you're paying for advertising, just the differences on how some of those things work. They had us go through like a press crisis, if you will. So apparently at some point in time, they expect there to be something to pop up that, you know, this happened and, you know, how do we deal with that? Or even how do you deal with like a negative attack from your opponent? And they were giving us lots of advice on like not repeating the attack. So if the candidate says, you know, she wants to dye everyone's hair blue because she's a Democrat, like I don't want to keep her, I'm not going to dye everyone's hair blue. I am going to like to skip that part and really focus on what I would do and not spend as much time deflecting on stuff that doesn't matter, that's not as important, or, you know, hyper focusing on these really small issues when there are important things. And for a district like mine, like District 44, you know, public schools, you know, healthcare, our having our vote actually recognized by the state of Missouri, those types of things, right? The other thing I learned, and this I know will be something that I will have to struggle with as a new candidate, is call time. So it was very brand new to me to realize that as a candidate, I will have to like set time up every day to call people and ask for money. And it's honestly just it honestly is something that does make me feel a little uncomfortable. But one of the things they really talked to us about was I'm not going to be asking money for me. Like give Bekki some money. That's great, right? But it would be, you know, to help support the work that I'm doing. Like we see what's happening right now, both at a state and federal level. Like if I have the ability to step up and help, and if you can help financially or, you know, with volunteer time or even just spreading the message. But so that fundraising piece, I know I'm going to have to get more comfortable with that. But again, it was very good to hear different ways about how you would do that and how you would organize like the people that you know, and how, anyway, it's just kind of how that process works. Because again, very new to me. And I'm not to the point where like I have a campaign manager yet. So I'm still just kind of figuring this stuff out now. The election is not till November of 26. But I just made business cards. I just passed out my first one last night to a restaurant in Hallsville. But so I'm kind of trying to help kind of build sort of a platform. And this was really a good way to help me understand that. And then we also talked a lot about like getting out the vote, making sure that people are actually voting, the amount of voters that Missouri has, or amount of people who didn't vote versus the amount of people that Missouri has available for voters, or people that voted for not Democrats, right? So our Trump voters, there's a lot more people out there who just didn't vote at all. And I guess some of the other things probably that I thought were pretty impactful was I didn't know, like I didn't know my win number. And so it was one of the very first things they talked to us about was, what's your win number? How many votes do you need to win? I need to hit over 10,000 votes, but I didn't know enough about that. at the time, or hadn't, I guess, thought about this number that I've got to reach. We also talked a lot about how they said partisanship is a drug. And I can tell you, as a recovering Republican, when I was in high school and after I got out of high school, like, I was this small town person, and I always just thought I was a Republican, and I checked the R box because that's what you did. And I just didn't know enough about kind of how it worked, right? And honestly, Cherie Reich was the first person to really open my eyes, because I grew up with her. I graduated with her son, and I thought, oh yeah, she's got to be great, because small town values, we share those. Turns out we don't. Turns out she's a, well, and so really just started this awareness for me that that just because I live in this town, and that does not mean the people that live in that town, follow my values all the way through. My father actually talked me into voting for Obama, and I remember him telling me about this guy in Chicago, and I remember thinking, like, this guy from Chicago, he's probably gonna want to take our guns. And again, this young girl from Hallsville, right? I voted for Obama. He's great. Like, that was, I think, a really important time for me, because I was just so very stuck in what I thought I was, and not as involved. So fast forward to where I'm at now. Went through this Camp Carnahan, and am really starting to launch my campaign locally. I've been involved with the Boone County Democrats for the last couple years. As she mentioned in my bio that I gave her, is the get out the vote. So I've been doing voter registration events, like at some of the public schools, some local community events here in town, just trying to help make sure that we're getting folks registered. I know there's some back and forth about how many Republicans did we register, and with Amendment 3 and stuff. But again, I like to think those people are probably kind of like me, like maybe voting for the R box because they think they're the small town person, but really they're progressive in their views and just not really tying those two together like we should. So I'm hoping to be able to take this experience from Camp Carnahan and myself as this recovering Republican from a couple decades ago, but to help people understand kind of the direction that we're headed. And it's scary. And yeah, I'm willing to get out there and try and make a change. So that's me. Are there questions about any of that I talked about, or any questions that you might have for me?
Well, I have one.
Yeah.
I really like the story that you have about how you became a Democrat. I think, and possibly for someone your age, this is a very useful kind of thing to repeat. You might think that it's only you, but I think there might be a lot of you out there, and some of you haven't made the switch in the understanding yet. And and I love the way that you said that. And the other way about the phone calling and the giving money, I have to think of Kip Kendrick, who I've known since he began in this. And, he just started showing up at all these, for the other candidates. You show up when they have their developments. You talk to people. You get to know people. They get to know you. And you can just got to get a feeling that I can call this person. And then you don't have to be embarrassed about it. I think nobody was more embarrassed about everything than Kip Kendrick, and you probably don't believe that, knowing him the way you know him now. But he was very shy, and had to take a while to get comfortable. And now when he runs, man, he calls me up. He calls up all the people who he's seen over the years, and we don't want you to wait too many years. We want you to get in there. And I would just suggest that go to the events of other candidates, go to, it's social events, and you'll say, oh, it's just social events. You're a candidate. It's not just a social event. You're getting yourself known and recognizable to people who can help you and who will want to help you. So I'm excited.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I had, like, talking with candidates like Jackie Sample, for example. She's not a candidate, but like, she was like, I lost my first race, like, and I didn't know what I was doing. And Greg Bush told me, he said, that I had expressed some interest in running, and he said, um, you want to run? I said, I do, but I don't know anything about it. I just, it's not in my world at all. And he said, if you have the will, we'll teach you the way. And so
Right.
here I am. I want to be involved, and I want people to learn from my experience where I thought I was checking the R box, and um and yeah, try to make a difference. So yeah, no, I appreciate that that feedback, David. Thank you.
Herb,
Yep.
or Herb or Sue.
It's Sue. Okay, first on one thing as a suggestion, because some of us haven't known your name or know you, and I've been out of commission for about 6 months, but anyway, I've noticed that if the people have shirts, or it could be even I remember seeing one person in a golf shirt with, if you could do big print of your name, so that
Okay.
people get used to seeing it. And if you're at activities that are social or whatever, you've got your signature outfit on.
Okay.
And
Yep.
Baker, what's John Baker's wife? She was a representative.
Judy.
She wore dressy jeans. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do that, but she had kind of a uniform.
Okay.
That she always looked excellent, but it wasn't overpowering.
Okay.
So just a suggestion. But I thank you very much, and I look forward to the next presentation too, because I hadn't realized that Camp Carnahan is so comprehensive, and obviously it's very valuable.
Yeah, it was 2 days. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it was 9 to 5:30 the first day in St. Louis, and then I think 9 to 3 the next day. So yeah, it was a good program for sure.
Marie Scala, she's currently the president of our local League of Women Voters, I believe, or at least she's served in that capacity for a few years now. So, Marie. Marie, we need,
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry. I just wanted to say my term as president is over, but I'm still active
Oh,
in
okay.
the league. My question is just, what do you look forward to the most about the campaign that's coming up? What part of it will energize you and help you keep going?
I think what will continue to energize me is having conversations with people who who feel like they're alone. One of the things that I had recently learned is I've always had a lot to say, but I've been very focused in the last couple of years about, like, from a political standpoint, because things are crazy, right? Is hearing people, finding confidence in themselves and feeling like they're not alone, because there are other people in our community, in our town, in our district that believe the way that we do. I had a lady, her parents actually used to be state reps in St. Louis, and she moved to Hallsville, and after the November election, she thought she was alone. Like, in Hallsville, she didn't realize, and she knows obviously how we voted, but she didn't know anyone. Unfortunately, her husband is very MAGA, and they're just very opposite now. But we have connected, and she has learned about other people in our community that are also supportive of that, and it's making her voice a little bit louder, because she knows that there are more of us. And so that, I think, seeing people out, again, I'm trying to take some of that advice from you all, and I'm trying to be at public events. I do have some shirts and signs I just got into, and people coming up and talking to me and saying, thank you for running. Thank you for even just, I wear my proud Boone County Democrat shirt, and people are like, you're so brave to wear that in Hallsville. And I'm like, this is my town. I'm not brave. This is who I am. But I know small town folks, we're quieter. There's a lot of people who are afraid to kind of speak up, but I guess the short answer is I am energized by the amount of people who are finding a little bit of their own voice with me. So.
Was there something else, Sue or Herb? No.
Yes,
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes.
we can
he's
go
ready.
on. The question that I have is really for both of them. If you want
Oh,
to,
okay. Okay, you can save your question until we hear.
and I'll ask
from
afterward
both.
if he.
Well, maybe we should, if there's not another question, particularly for Bekki, hear from our other guests, so we can see the diversity of this event and what other things they bring to it. We have here with Bekki so happy to meet her as a new candidate in a very important race for us. And that the candidates is part of the Camp Carnahan, but it's probably not the biggest part. The biggest part is the activists, and maybe we can hear from Devon now about that kind of training and that kind of event.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate everyone allowing me to be here this afternoon to talk about my experience with Camp Carnahan. I am not running for office or anything like that. I really want to be in the activist space. I also want to be in the outreach and bringing in voter space. I believe we can bring in a lot more people into the democratic process, and I want to help do that here on the ground here in Missouri. So that's why I was actually recommended as well to Camp Carnahan by Scott Crystal. And so I applied and got in, and I was surprised because I don't really have any experience in this work. I'm really boots on the ground, first time doing this year. I have worked at the county clerk's office in the past as a poll worker and as an election trainer and as the person who used to put people at the polling places. But my side of Camp Carnahan was I did the advocacy and outreach space for that. And, it was a very, 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 for me, it was life-changing experience because I saw things I never thought I was going to see, talk to people I never thought I was going to get to talk to, and learn things that I didn't know I was going to learn. And so when I first walked into camp, first person that greets me at camp is Miss Yvonne. Miss Yvonne is the Democratic co-chair, or the chair, vice chair of the Missouri Democratic Party. And she was the one who checked me in. And as I go down the hall, the first person that talks to me as I go down the hall is Russ Carnahan. So I'm walking down the hall, and Mr. Russ stops me and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" I tell him where I'm from, and he was really happy that I was there from Columbia, of course. And so we talked for about 5 minutes. I go into the place and I sit down, and this young lady comes sits next to me, and she's from Harrisonville, and she wants to run for Mark Alford's seat. And I'm, talking to her. I was like, oh, I didn't think nobody's going to sit by me. I was really not expecting any of this. First person that spoke was Wesley Bell from St. Louis. He's the congressman out of St. Louis, and he spoke and gave us a little pep talk. The main thing that he said that I liked was, or that I agreed with, was that we need to get boots on the ground. We need more people out here in these streets voting, getting people registered, registering them as Democrats, not just getting them registered, but registering as Democrats and doing more on the ground footwork, talking to folks, grassroots stuff. The other stuff that I felt was really helpful, there was a couple of speakers that spoke that day that I really liked. Miss Carla May, she is out of St. Louis. She ran for Josh Hawley's Senate seat in 2024, but she didn't win, of course. In the primary. But that's a name you guys should definitely be on the lookout for. She's a firebrand out of St. Louis County. She was talking about the formula, which was something that Bekki also mentioned, getting the numbers that you need to win, which is something that's very important for organizing too, because if you know the numbers that you need to win, then you know where to go organize and get the voters. Tracy McGreary spoke on Sunday. She is out of St. Louis as well. I wanted to highlight her because she did something that's very unconventional, which is she ran as a independent first because she couldn't get through where she in her county where she was at. She couldn't break through as a candidate, and she ran as an independent, and then she became a Democrat when she joined the House. So, um, so she was talking about finding ways to win when it doesn't seem like you can find a way to win. Because she's in a county, St. Louis County, and the counties surrounding St. Louis, they have weird demographics. And so they like to tell you that like St. Charles County is red and and those places are red. They're really not. It's really purple there. And so that's why she had to do a little maneuvering, and sometimes the party infrastructures in those counties are very hardcore and won't let outsiders in. And I think that's kind of that's where she was running up against. So she backdoored it and went in that way. And I found that to be very interesting that, she found the way. And then she brought her message back to the Democratic side and has ran as a Democrat ever since. So that I found that very interesting. My course was I had a national guy. His name was Ben Needham. He was definitely a DC consultant. You could definitely tell that. And we also had a guy named Ben Murray out of he was a legislative assistant out of for a Mo legislator out of Kirkwood. They both were giving us advice on how to organize on the ground. The main points that we learned about were power mapping and power building. Power mapping is basically you need power mapping and power building to work together. Basically, power mapping is your connections. Who are you connected to? Who are your people that you know? And then who are the people that they know? And then mapping out amongst those folks who you can get to vote for you or help support whatever cause you're trying to get supported. I like that approach. It's a good approach for building up coalitions. And that's another thing that we definitely talked about was building coalitions with different groups amongst one area and bringing together groups who have a shared interest or a shared goal, and how to build upon those shared interests and goals in order to receive the outcome that we want to receive on any given like election or whatever that we're trying to do. So that was something that was very interesting to me as well. Um, some of the power sharing stuff was that I found interesting too is that a lot of times we look at the positives of power sharing, but they also talked about the negatives of power sharing, about making sure that the agreements of power sharing are clear and that everybody holds up to their end of the agreement and that there's actual consequences for not holding up your end of the agreement. So that way that power sharing agreement will be more likely to be upheld by everybody that's in it. Another thing that they talked about in my track was volunteer recruitment. We are also pushing the use of the Reach app. I am going to be doing a training next week on Tuesday evening at the Boone County headquarters to train people in person, hands-on, how to use the Reach app in order to do the organizational stuff. I have been playing with this app for about a month and a half now. This app is a game changer. It's going to do what it did in Wisconsin. It can do that here in Missouri. It can absolutely do that, especially if we get enough people on board and we show them the way. We can flip the state with that app alone, because that app is that powerful, because it allows you to upload contacts into it, and you don't even have to upload all your contacts. You can pick and choose which ones, and the more data that we can collect, the better it is for us to be able to target races and target for candidates how we can get the votes that they need out to the polls, the voters that they need out to the polls. So this app is really going to be a game changer. That's something that we talked about at the thing as well. And then the social media side of things. I don't know if you all know this, but I am the person that has been doing the social media posts. One of them anyways. I'm not the only one, but I've been helping. I came on this year to help with the social media side of things for the Boone County Democrats. So all those posts that you've been seeing with all the news stories and updated information about what's going on, current, that's me doing that. That's making sure that you guys stay up to date, that you're an educated populace, because the educated voter is a voter that votes wisely. So that's why I've been putting in the work in the background, make sure that everybody knows what's going on. Not just in Columbia, but statewide too. It's going to be really important that we know what's going on in Kansas City and St. Louis, because that's the reason why I'm in the organizing space. Columbia is, I don't know if you all know this, but Columbia is very much gerrymandered. Black voters in Columbia are not, our votes being diluted because of the way that it's being gerrymandered right now. I don't know if y'all know that, but it's very, if you look at the map, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'll tell you now, the reason why they haven't been talking about cracking St. Louis is they can't. Because if they crack District 1, it'll dilute the power and it'll end up making them blue. That's why they're not even talking about St. Louis right now. Because of the demographics. St. Louis City proper is a minority majority city, meaning there's more minorities in the city than there are white folks. And so that's why they cannot crack that city. That's why they haven't even been talking about touching it or anything like that, because they can't, because St. Louis City is separate from St. Louis County. And because St. Louis County, the population of St. Louis City does not count in the population of St. Louis County, that's why Kansas City is the #1 populated city in the state of Missouri instead of St. Louis. The state purposely does this to St. Louis. They've moved the county lines a bunch of times. They've moved the city lines and all that stuff and keep making the city smaller. They've taken over the police down there and everything. So we need to be paying attention to that. And that's why I'm trying to get on the ground organizing, so I can help organize Blue back to Boone County, because Boone County is truly blue, but we don't get our representation because they basically have split us in half to keep us from getting that representation that we should have. But nobody's complaining about it because nobody knows. Nobody's making us think about it, you know. But if you look at what I'm saying, you'll see what I'm saying is true. Columbia, and the other thing that's happening is because the census is so important. The census is how we get our voter representation. And if we are undercounted in the census, especially the Black population, if we're undercounted, we don't get the right representation. So that's why I wanted to do this Camp Carnahan stuff, because I want to get on the ground, help organize the Black community so that we get the right numbers in the census and we get our representation like we need to. There's Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield, and then the Boot Hill. Those are where the largest Black populations are. But there are other places in this state that have large Black populations. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Dalton, Missouri, but Dalton, Missouri is up in northern Missouri, and it's a town. And like Dalton and Paris and Monroe City, those are cities, those are small towns, but they have Black populations in them, and it's pretty big Black populations because they're former like leftover slavery towns, you know. And so some of the slaves are still there, and so that's why they have Black populations in towns like Slater, Missouri, Marshall, Missouri. There's all those places that have Black populations, but people don't be knowing that because they don't pay attention to it. But those are voters that we could be bringing into the democratic process and bringing the state up to make it blue. And that's why I wanted to do the Camp Carnahan. I'm also possibly going to be getting into this Lead Mo program so I can do more advocacy work for advocating for voting mainly, and getting voters involved in the process and getting people educated about why their voting matters and what power they actually hold in the system. Because a lot of voters don't think they hold power in the system, but if they actually understood how much power they actually had, they would be invested in voting and invested in being a part of this system so that they can change things. Change doesn't happen overnight, but if you get enough people involved, you can make change happen. Many hands make the work light. And that's why I want to do the organizing space, because I want to help I want to help our candidates here in Boone County be better candidates and have a better backup system. We know we're going to have reliable voters because we have everybody active and involved, because we're educating our voters, and we have an app like Reach. This Reach app will also allow us to message each other countywide. You know, I can just send a message in a Reach app, and everybody in the county that's in that Reach app will get the message. And it'll help us to organize the county better. It'll help us to be able to educate each other better. The other thing is too, if Facebook goes down, and I'm not trying to be alarmist or nothing like that, but I mean, it is a possibility. I can't say that it's not. If Facebook do go down, we have that Reach app, because that Reach app is Democratic owned. It is Democratic based, and the people that are in it are for the Democrats, is basically what I'm saying. So it's another place where we can create groups to talk to each other too, in a more private, secure way, and not have to worry about, is Facebook looking at it, or is Facebook going to throttle it down because of what we say or whatever. So it's a good way to communicate, good way to bring people together. The other thing that's really neat about this app is it allows you to register a voter right there on the spot. You don't have to have no paper. You don't have to have a pen. They literally are registering themselves. All you do is say, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" And you give them your phone, have them look up their name. They see if their name's there and say, "Is that information accurate for you?" You know, and if they say yeah, then you mark them, you hold them, and you ask them some more questions, and you can verify what type of voter they are and mark that in the system, and it'll allow you to build your democratic base up. It'll allow you to figure out, okay, who are my sometime voters that vote Democrat, and who are my loyal I can always count on. And knowing that information is so valuable to any candidate that wants to run. You know, a lot of the problem in Missouri is people don't think they can run as a Democrat because they don't think they'll win, right? But if you give them the data by using this app, because the app will pull the data together for them, and you can show them, no, you might have a chance here. Why don't you try? You know, that's why that data is so important for that Reach app. And so that part of it is really, I'm really excited about that part, because I think it's an easy way. Miss Yvonne came last week to our committee meeting and talked about this as well. And she used the term digital door knock. And I like that terminology, because what it means is you with stuff like COVID, and then rural areas, your neighbors are far apart. You know, you're not close to your neighbors. You're not walking necessarily to your neighbor's house. It might be a quarter mile between you and your neighbor in a rural area. And so in order to still be connected to your neighbor and stuff, everybody got internet, everybody can use a phone. That app, you can connect to your neighbor. You can just send your neighbor a text. You don't even have to talk to anybody else. You can literally just send your neighbor a text and say, "Hey, remember, go vote today." Or, "Hey, it's this election today." Or, "Hey, did you hear about this proposal that's being proposed by the state?" And it's a way of informing your friends without being imposing. You know, you don't have to be imposing and all. My friends, they always are like, "Girl, you do too much with this politics," but they don't be ready for me. But I can be a little gentle with them by taking this app and saying, "Hey, just want to remind you to go vote," or, "Hey, why don't you check this candidate out?" And then give them a link to the candidate, or a donation link, or whatever. You can do all of that in that app. That app is really going to be a game changer. That's why I'm really excited about it. That's why I really wanted to get in on this ground space of organizing and advocacy, because I'm for voter advocacy more than anything, because voting is voting is life. That's what gets us the rest of the advocacy stuff that we need, you know? So I'm always going to be advocating for vote first, but I advocate for mental health as well. That's because I think a lot of what's going on in the voter populace has to do with our mental health. You know, I am a Gen Xer who experienced 9/11 at 21. And man, I'll tell y'all a story real quick. 2000 was the first year I voted. And the day that the election was held was the day my grandfather was murdered. The very last thing that I did with my grandfather was go vote in the election in 2000. My passion comes from that because my grandfather was a civil rights advocate. He very much taught me that voting was our power and that you can't give up that power and you always must go vote. He's the one who's made me a lifelong voter. That's why I tell my story with passion because I want to inspire people to understand that voting is everything. That's the game. That's how we get what we need in this life, in this country. You know, in other places it's not like that. But in America, if we want what we need, we got to go to that poll and we got to vote. And we got to make sure that we're voting in our own interests, not just voting blindly R or D. And so I'm an advocate. I want to be on the advocacy side and help bring in voters to the process. Like I said, I want to have our Boone County electeds have such a strong base of voters that they know their numbers and they're going to be able to count their numbers easily. And it's not going to be a struggle to get the numbers that they need because they'll have the data and they'll have the people. You know, that's where I want to come from. That's what I'm doing in this space. So any questions that anybody has, please feel free to throw them at me. And sorry if I took too long.
Thank you so much, Devon. You know, you might be too much for some of your friends, but I don't think you're too much for us. We like what we hear, and you told us about a lot of things. I'll just point out that our next time we meet, which will be in 2 weeks because of a long weekend coming, or a holiday weekend coming up, Yvonne Chung will introduce us to the Reach app. And so we'll be hearing a lot more about that. There was a hangover question from Herb, I think. We'll start there.
Thank you for recognizing my hangover. I want to thank you both very much. You are both declaring and obviously well on the path to more conspicuous leadership than you even in the past. And each of you is clearly going to be making very important contributions. You both require discipline and organization and all that good stuff. You, Bekki, are putting your ego on the line, running for public office, which is the special thing about that. You, Devon, are committing to organization leadership, and that is equally critical. The two have to go together, and that requires something special too, which is the ability to see things simultaneously in terms of a campaign and the larger picture of all. And I thank you for it. But my question is, one of the things that is highlighted in this morning's Real newspaper, locally, the Missourian, is that nationally, the Democratic Party has been losing registered voters, down 2.1 over the last 4 years nationally, according to their numbers. That doesn't count every state. And the Republicans at the same time have gained 2.4 million. Do you have in mind, or did you learn through Camp Carnahan, or both, things that we need to be doing better? We collectively need to be doing better or more of to address what is, I think, a very serious problem.
Bekki, would you like to go first, or?
I can,
I-
sure.
I
So,
I have to answer if you don't.
so one of the things, and with me being in, I'm sure if you're not aware that the district that I'm in, so in Boone County, it just wraps around this. It's very, and Devon talked about like the gerrymander. I mean, it is wild, and it's probably, I mean, just looking at it, it's a third of the county, you know,
Yep.
space wise, right? And so one of the things that they talk to us about from a rural perspective, which by the way, super hard word to say, rural, but from that perspective is, you know, Democrats can be viewed and have been viewed as not having enough fight in them, or not enough visibility in those spaces. And so for me, it's wearing it, it's like it's like Sue mentioned, like wearing your shirt out there. Like it is being visible in all of those spaces that, you might not feel like a Democrat would be welcome in, but be there anyways, right? And make sure that you're taking up space. You're letting people know that you are a Democrat and that you are here in I'm going to the Ashland Rodeo tonight. I'm going to wear my Proud Democrat shirt, right? Like it's getting out there and having people recognize that we are in this together. Republicans and MAGA people are loud, and they're talking over people, and they're wearing ugly hats. And, how do we become visible? We don't necessarily have to be ugly and yell, but how are we loud? How are we fighting? How are we representing? How do we get ourselves out there and encourage people to do the same? And so that was really, I guess, for me, from my little C-shaped spot around Columbia, is get out there. And one of the things I thought was interesting too, and when you look at where the District 44 is, it has Centralia, it has Hallsville, it has Ashland. It is carved around Battle, but all of that district, or a lot of that district there, is in 44, but they've zigzagged their way kind of literally around the high school to put that in a Columbia district. But all the people that live there, or a lot of the people that have kids that go to that school, are in the 44th. And so I'm also trying to get more involved in that part of it's Columbia as well, and not just hang out with the rural folks, because I feel like there's something to be said about that part of the 44th that's not getting any involvement or real representation either. It has been very rural focused. So also just trying to get in with some of those folks as well. So
my answer for that,
Yeah.
I was about to say, my answer for that is education. We have got to start talking to each other as well. That's the other thing. We gotta, as Democrats, if we're educated Democrats, it's our job to educate other people. It is, because this country, the majority of the country only reads at a 5th grade level. And that's a problem. That's another reason why voting is not the activity that folks are choosing to do. A lot of folks don't feel like they are a part of the process anymore because they don't feel like their vote matters. They feel like they're just doing it for no reason. And it's because of the way that the legislature and the state people have made it look. But we as Democrats, we must be out there talking. We can't run and hide from these folks. We got to be out there talking about it. We got to be out there educating folks. We got to show people why our position is the better position. We can't be one saying that people will say is hiding your hands and throwing rocks, and we can't be doing that, man. We got to be out there vocal with the folks. We got to be out there talking face to face. Grassroots is where it's at with Democrats, because that's what they're used to seeing from the Democratic Party is grassroots efforts. One thing that I will say is that we really missed a boat on this whole social media thing as Democrats, and regulating the internet like we needed to. And now we're playing catch up. A lot of the reason why Republicans are doing so well is because they're in spaces that Democrats are not in. They are in the spaces of like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all the social media. They're going on places like Charlie Kirk. They literally have a blogosphere of people that are out here spouting out these messages to these younger folks. And the one thing I will say is the younger folks did not grow up with a normal sense of democracy either. They don't know what normal democracy looks like, because we've been back and forth at this for the last 25 years. And if you're 25 years old and you're trying to be an adult voter, well, what did you get? What did you see? Nothing but a bunch of fighting back and forth and the erosion of democracy over the last 25 years. So why would you be invested in that? And if your parents weren't parents that were invested in it either, you're not going to be invested in it. because that's how you get invested in politics, is usually through familiar means. Familial, not familial, but familiar, but familial meaning family. Your family is the one who influence your politics oftentimes. And if your family's not political, well, you're not going to be political either. You're not going to go vote if you're not seeing your parents do it. And your parents aren't telling you, well, you need to vote. That's not what's going on with these Gen Xers and these millennials and these Gen Zers. Their parents didn't vote. They sat and argued about politics on the internet instead. So they have a whole different view of how politics works. So in order to bring them back into the fold, we got to do some old fashioned pulling them to the side and saying, hey, let me educate you on this, or let me teach you about this. That's what I do with my nieces and nephews. And they all vote, all of them. They all vote. I make sure they vote because I educate them on it and I tell them what the power is by voting. And that's what it's going to take for these young people. They ready to do the work. They ready to jump in, because every time I talk to a young person about what I'm doing, they get excited. They listen. They'll get registered to vote with me and everything. I can get them registered to vote. That's not a problem. It's creating the lifetime voter. That's the thing we need to do. Getting them registered is the easy part. Making them a voter is the hard part. And we got to give them more resources to make sure that they're voters as well. You know, supporting those people that we're encouraging in the moment. Not just saying, hey, I want to register you to vote and then don't do no follow-up. Democrats got to do more follow-up. We got to do more follow-up, talking to folks and saying, hey, I know I registered you to vote, but I want to make sure did you understand the process? Have you ever done it yet? You know, follow through, a little bit follow through. That follow through will help build up that base that we need for real too. Because the Democratic base is pretty fractured right now. You know, we come together for elections. The Republicans, they come together for life. And we got to change that dynamic, because we want people. We're not trying to be a cult like the Republicans are right now, but what we want is people who are informed voters, who are actually going to join the process because they see that the process is working for them and not against them. You know, especially the working class folks, especially the poor and disabled folks who don't usually have a voice in this because they don't have the money to have a voice in this. They can't donate to campaigns in order to be able to give a little bit of favor for their voice, you know? I'm a unique disabled person, and the fact that I'm able to have the voice that I have and say the things that I'm saying, because, you know, it's where it's at. So, sorry about that. But yeah, so sorry about that. Yeah, so it's just a matter of talking to folks, putting boots on the ground, talking to folks, talking about how much you love democracy with folks. You know, don't necessarily talk about the candidate, because that's not going to get through, but talk about why democracy is important in the first place. Talk about why you love democracy, why it matters. Educating people. We got folks that if you took a little bit, like 5 minutes to educate them, we could flip them. Just take a little bit extra time. That's all. A little bit extra time, a little bit of extra effort on some people. You know, one-time contact's not gonna get it. We need to do multiple contacts in order to sustain those relationships and build that base for all the good candidates that we have, because we got good candidates here. These people are great folks. I like Boone County. I like where I live. That's why I've decided to join in the process, because I like my electeds. I like the people that are here elected. I like the Democrats. I want to help shore them up, get them the things that they need so that they can be the strong voices in the state house or Congress or wherever they are at for us and our party.
Let me interrupt if I have to, because we still have some questions. David Mallory has been waiting for quite a while here.
Oh, thank you, David. Yeah, but just real quick, aside to Bekki, I have a hard time saying rural also. I don't know if it's a one-for-one correlation, but I find country might be a better, to me, people listen to country music. Nobody listens to rural music, but I think we're kind of talking about the same demographics. But anyway, that's an aside. My question is, I was able to attend the first restart of Camp Carnahan when Russ started back up. And they also had 3 tracks. They had one for campaign or candidates. And the one I attended was on, I think it was called Campaign Management for Professionals. I'm like, I'm not a professional, but it was the closest one. I don't remember what the third one was, but I liked, sounded like the one Devon went to, advocacy and outreach. I don't think that was the one I had. So I'm glad to hear they got that one. What was the third one that they had this time?
It was the same one that you took, the campaign management one. I didn't do the campaign management one. There was somebody there though from Boone County, I think, that did the campaign management one. I'm not 1,000% sure though.
So there was Greg Bush's son was there. I'm not sure if was he in that one, or was he with you in advocacy?
I'm thinking he was in the campaign management one.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
There's another question, I guess, for Devon. I was interested too. You mentioned being in the Boone County Clerk's office, and when you were talking about reach, I think we got some ideas that it kind of connected you to what you learned in the working in the clerk's office about voter registration, about voter participation, and I guess we're asking you to reflect on that, remembering that this kind of voter representation or voter turnout is something Bekki is really going to need.
Absolutely. Well, when I worked at the clerk's office, about 10 years ago. I started as a poll worker. And
that was Wendy Noren was?
Yeah, under Wendy Noren.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been that long ago. Yeah, it was under Wendy Noren. I started out as a poll worker. And I worked a few elections. Then I became not just a poll worker, but I became like an election supervisor, where you do the person that makes sure the votes get to the county clerk's office. I did that for a while. And then the lady that was doing the job that I took over passed away. And then I got the job under Taylor when Taylor was there. And I was there while Taylor was there. And then I left once Taylor left. And so I actually learned about mapping and all that stuff, because I had to know the maps, because I had to be able to place people at polling places. So I know about that kind of stuff from that. Just working on the ground and stuff. And I did voter registration in office and stuff too. So I know how to do that stuff. And that's how. And I've also just done like educational stuff. Like I said, I used to train the people to do the poll work. So like I would be the teacher in the class that teach you how to go and work at the polling place and use the iPad and all that stuff. And I was there long enough that I had actually helped test those iPads when they first started moving to that system and all that stuff. So seeing the changes over the years have been good. I think, like I said, it's really about voter education more than anything.
We will have Brianna Lennon come next month to talk to us about any sort of the past election and the next one in 26.
Awesome.
So we always look forward to. She may be our most frequent guest here, and certainly is one of the most beloved. And we really are happy when she brings along staff people who tell us things from a different perspective that sometimes makes sense. I mean, I'm really serious. In Bekki's district, the voter turnout, the voter motivation it's going to be all about that. And I think Greg Bush is a good person to mention there. He came as a kind of a novice, certainly not in life, but in politics, and pulled off a good one. So you've mentioned some names here today that are very meaningful. Sue or Herb, was there another comment or question?
Mine actually is a comment, but also if you have any input. I've been at Lenore for 3 months. 3.5 months.
It's a care facility.
It's the nursing home, and I'm in the care part. But one of many of the people there, well, first of all, if you're a resident for sure, and if you're in the care part and have to pay, you have to have a whole lot of money. I mean, you have to be super wealthy to afford it. And so we've got a lot of people that have a fair amount of money that are residents. And there seems to be an ethic among many of them that even if they're Democrats, they don't speak up. What I have tended to, I've gotten acquainted a lot with staff, and they're, it's a very mixed. There's just a very mixed, more of ethnic backgrounds and all, which is great. And I feel like in that climate, although I don't know what the turnout is, I'm more likely to find Democrats among the staff than among the residents. The thing I do notice is even if the residents are Democrats, they might say something like, we don't talk politics here. I've heard that. Yep. Or they want to be kind of, well, I shouldn't be saying this, but I just speak up. But I don't know how you change that climate. And I also don't, I think, Devon, from your point of view, trying to get some of these people organized, and not only organized, but the problem is some of them are working 12-hour days and whatever to vote is just, and they have children and I don't know how they do all the things they're doing. I was at post-acute too, and there were more people there that I just didn't see how, and they can't afford babysitting. So,
well, I think Sue is reminding us how complicated it is in our institutions, whether it's a university, a school, or a church, or wherever we are, the poison that people think the Democrats are, or that politics is. I love the fact that Bekki came forward with her description of her family and the service they're already presenting, not to mention being such a young grandmother, my Lord, that, somehow we have to break through this and get people to discuss civilly the things that they really need to discuss with each other. Of course, Sue is going to do it. We've known her for a long time, and she does it so intelligently and so kindly always. I guess that's part of it. Any other comments?
Can I just make one quick question? One thing. Well, I'll tell two stories. One is when I first got to Lenore, and I was I got down to the assisted living. It was right before the No Kings March, and the woman that was working the midnight shift. No, the one that was working the evening shift. I found her out in the area, in the general area, making a poster. I said, "What is it?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to the march." And she was making a poster that she had found online, which was to throw, I can't even do it very well, put up the middle finger. And so we've been good friends ever since. Then the other one is when I came to
your operation.
Yes, I was going to tell you.
Sue had an operation.
You can tell us.
February 5th. And it did not go well. They had to give her
on my heart,
an operation on her heart, give her 13 units of blood, which is 6.5 liters. They kept her asleep for 24 hours after the operation for fear she would die if she woke up. She woke up in my presence, or I was there when they woke her up. And I leaned down to her and I told her, "You've lost a lot of blood." Sue's response was immediately, without saying anything else, "Go ahead, Sue."
I said, "I was just trying to get rid of Trump." And even while I was in the hospital, I didn't care. I told all the doctors and everything, I didn't care what their background was. My daughter kept older doctor kept trying to shut me up. I said, I don't care. I think they need to hear this because it's going to affect them too.
Sorry to make you cry, Devon.
You
No,
can tell
that is so funny. That is hilarious. I
don't
am laughing,
care.
crying, laughing. That is too
I don't
funny.
care if you tell that to everybody. I don't care. I would love it.
Well, I did know that. She survived the operation mentally and morally intact.
Well, my father went out the same way, pretty much, talking politics to the very end, and that's the way some of us are. But our organizers and our campaigners are going to have to engage a lot more with this spirit. And we were told there were people coming who'd been to Camp Carnahan, but we've actually met 2 stars of our coming generation and leadership here. Do you have any final words, either of you? We're so happy to have you here today. Tell us what we can do. Tell us what you've told us what you want to do. Anything further?
I just appreciate you guys taking the time to have us here.
You'll be back. You will be back if you're a
Yeah,
candidate.
yeah, and honestly, every conversation that I have with folks, like I'm taking stuff away from it. Like I am adding it to my, because again, this is new to me. So every one of these conversations is a learning opportunity for me. And so I just appreciate the work that you all do. And yeah, I'll be back. You will see more of me, and I assure you, you will see more of Devon, because she is really, I feel so much more energized just after listening to her. So I am very excited for what the future holds.
Bekki, I realize you have a very hard district.
Yes.
I don't know. When was the last time it was Democratic? Not since it's been formed, probably.
No.
Yeah,
you've had some kooks in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And the current representative doesn't even live in my district. So
right.
I know that has kind of been one of those things that people have mentioned and not really, but that gets to me. I hear him speak about being this, honorable person, and his word is so important. And I know that he doesn't live in my district. I know that he campaigned against Adrian and lost to Adrian in Harrisburg, because he lives in Roachport, and he lost in that district. And so he owns a house in my district, and that's where he changed his voter registration to. And that puts a really bad taste in my mouth, because you're not even being honest with your representation. Just owning a property that someone else lives in, day and night, you go to Roachport, and that's where you live, that's where you sleep. And he's from Centralia, but again, like that's a big deal to me. It just feels really icky, and I don't know that it would have much weight, because he is registered to vote in a house he owns in our district. But for me, it looks bad, and that puts a really bad taste in my mouth. And I would think that other people would see that as well. And maybe the Board of Ethics, there has to be an opportunity for us to at least give that some thought, because as someone mentioned in the chat, yeah, he doesn't live in my district. So
Devon, some final words from you today.
I just want to say thank you all for listening to me, and let's organize. Let's get this.
Yes.
Let's get this place blue as we can get it. We can make a difference. I believe each one teach one. I'm not afraid to have a conversation with anybody. I'll go to MAGA country. I've been to sundown towns. I'll do it, and that's what it's going to take, though. Yep. We're going to need people doing that. We're going to need people willing to have them kind of conversations, willing to step out in areas where they're not used to being seen or heard. I'm down for saving democracy, and that's what it takes to save democracy. So that's what I want to do, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to share my feelings about these things with some folks that agree. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad I was able to enjoy a little bit of time with you all today.
We kept you over, but we thank you so much, both of you.
Oh, so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. We appreciate it.
we'll have a little business discussion and